of matter. And let's do some July astrology. But before that, let's take a look at our little planets. We have the midheaven, 7 Taurus, applying to conjunct Mars. So in Mars hour, Saturn day, which is also Uranus day. Saturn in the 8th house in Pisces, with Jupiter in the 11th, again Gemini, and Mercury in the 12th. The moon is in Capricorn. We just had a full moon, so it's decreasing moon, opposing Venus and Mercury, ascendant ruled by Sol. So let's see, why did I want to talk about July right now? The only way to do it is to look at July. So we are in the end of June when recording this. Let's begin with the lunations. Okay, we're going to have July 6th, new moon in Cancer, and July 21, full moon in Capricorn. So, again, full moon, just another one. We just had one to begin with. And we are had moon phases. That's nice. And we want to see the chart. So, new moon in Cancer. 14 degrees Cancer, middle phase conjuncting Sirius. And I believe Sirius is rising by this moment. It means I owe you to look for the Sirius rise, because that's important. Sirius rise is the beginning of basically another beginning of astrological year. There's several, there's the solstice and so on, but it's where you make your wishes, like literally the wishing upon a star. Last year Sirius was rising. I was wishing upon a star to do good things for humanity and get away with it. And I think if you have been following my podcast, definitely, as I always do, take something to the most extreme that I can take it within my means, and that went beyond. Okay, so many things that I didn't think that would happen happened this year, from the containment of my cell phone even, and that was very exciting. So I want you to make your own wishes when Sirius rises. Back then, shout out to Crasia Tassio and Lara Duncheva, through which I know about Crasia Tassio. And she mentioned that the Sirius rising, if it is kind of blinking, then, but if it is in a dimmer light, is bad news for Europe, which unfortunately was the case. And we saw that, yes, things in Europe got weird, but also a lot of things are exposed. So it was timely for me, and many of the good things I did had to do with reminding people about stuff that already happened in Europe. And I don't mean even the World War, even very recent, stuff like expendable children and so on. So just talking about this is good news. And when the star is at the first day that it rises is in good shape, then this is good news. So we'll see what will be the rising of the series. If it hasn't, I believe it would rise. I would see Krasi pops with news, that's for sure. So, although she's busy with talismans right now, but that is a thing to look at. Okay, the time when Sirius rises, you want to wake up with the Sirius rise if possible, to watch it. So July. It's supposed to be rising in July, and I owe you like this news of when to, because this is a very important time that can be very meaningful for the next of the year. Um, I have my moon conjunct in Sirius, so that is, yes. Um, and again, as with all the noble stars, wishing upon a star, but you also have to take deep look. It's a spiritual practice. Astrology is a spiritual practice. The people who use it for, money, for this, for that, it's a spiritual practice. You cannot give that up, especially not if you're using a goal for an election. Okay. And you've electrocuted some women in the past. Like, what do you think is going to happen? Of course, people gonna know. um so again, you have to do the spiritual work in your own way, and to tend to things genuinely, because when you work with the planets, yes, that's a part of the deal. Okay, that's a part of the deal. um and so on. So this is a good thing to remind you too, if you're watching this and you're like, yeah, I'm going to wish upon a star in Sirius and so on and so forth. And then, it's related to Isis, so think about, respecting women, uh, cancer, children. Yes, it's the dog star, but it's a good star. It's not a goal that's going to, bring forth all the things that needs to be brought forth. It's a very beneficial star, um, but you also have to be aware that it is a spiritual process. It's not a process where you can swipe things under the rug and not have them tended to. But when you're willing to be tending to these things, there can be great wealth accumulating, and wealth is not just money. So yes, so full moon in Cancer, conjunct in Sirius. I believe Sirius by then will be rising, so it means it should be rising anytime soon, or it will be rising right after. Already good to ask for things from Sirius. I'm very likely to do a separate video about that. Meanwhile, you can watch Krasiotasios videos on Sirius, and Ladudun Sheva's. What we have co-present is Venus on the 22nd degree. Now, I'll tell you what I like. We have Mercury opposing Pluto. That's a hard aspect, okay? I have it natally, nothing to be afraid of when you're no longer a child. Mercury is children, Pluto is power. So you wanted them to be harmonizing with each other, at least. Um, but the rest of the aspects are pretty cool. Like the rest of the aspects, it's like we're in the blue, and being in the blue in astrology is a good news. It means there's a lot of beneficial things to tap into, but not too much harm. Okay, so even as per this Mercury, well, it sextiles Neptune, um, and that's already a place where through divination, astrology, healing, or whatnot, you could remedy, okay, this aspect. We have Uranus already beginning to perfect its trine to Pluto. Okay, we're in the bisextile. We're in the shade or the thrones of the bisextile. I might be doing bisextile work, and now when it's with Algol, so maybe I'll begin a bisextile, whether it's meditation sessions or channeling sessions or tapping to sessions. I think that's going to be a good practice. Yes, ruler of the moon is at the moon sign, so there's not much to analyze deeper into that. we do need to keep in mind Venus is in a wide orb that is beginning to apply to oppose Pluto. Um, so, and she's on the 22nd degree. 22nd, as we know, is a little degree. It is only one day that Venus is on this degree, but because it's a new moon, it means this is a new cycle where, at least for 1 month to 6 months, the topic of the killings of women, I think even honor killings is appropriate to discuss. Yes, honor killings in cultures, not just Islamic cultures or indigenous cultures, but if cultures where, let's say, the Mormon church that sees women like slaves and is okay to electrocute and kill them and rape them on film, and they're expandable, then this is, yes, she does. Yes, she does, sextile Uranus. So these the voices of the women that are no longer here being honored, um, and that is appropriate to raise this topic to the discourse and to yes, pursue justice, raise it into awareness, change the culture. Okay, I mean, we in Europe we ask of people that immigrate to change the culture when it comes to honor killings, when it comes to expandable children, but we also need to change our own culture um, regarding that. Okay, same with the United States and so on. Jupiter is close to Aldebaran. Jupiter is on Aldebaran at the time of the new moon. Jupiter Aldebaran. I heard. Well, we had an astrologer. Well, we have an astrologer. It's just like used to be on Twitter, and now it's not. That's S.J. Anderson. That says Jupiter in Aries does nothing good. Although somebody did a talisman of Mars and Jupiter in Aries. And Jupiteris, well, don't get offended if you have that. Like, okay, Jupiteris is just, Jupiter is about expanding things, and and Aries is kind of like the real estate. So Jupiteris is the CEO of something, but Jupiter on Antares, again, it has its repercussions because it's winning off material plane, okay. But this is where there is connection with the spirit and matter. Um, so as always, Jupiter brings a certain idea, a certain philosophy, a certain worldview. So Jupiteris, why people say Jupiteris is not a good thing, because you're going to want to accumulate a lot of wealth and you're going to adjust your worldview. Okay, so where Ronald Bernard said, freeze your consciousness. Okay, and then what happens when you defreeze your consciousness? And you run into something, it's like, oh, I can't do this anymore. And now you have to deal with all that you've done, what your consciousness was minus 100 degrees. And Jupiter on Aldebaran can be similar in the sense that, well, I have to do this, I have to do this, and you adjust your worldview to win. And so adjusting your worldview, your mindset to win is a part of the praxis of winning, but it goes with a big caution here, because you don't want to have a Pyrrhus winning, which means that your win is your loss. Okay? Here's what I have when I was a Me Too veteran. So there's somebody trying to have the one up on me. And I'm like, dude, I'm not your enemy. I was like, somebody's going to come in your life and ruin it if you keep acting this way, if you keep enabling these things. But they were a little bit set in their own ways and try to silence me or stuff like that. But eventually it's kind of like a Pyrrhus winning. Like if you win, you lose in that sense. And that is what people should be cautious of. Okay, is not to have this Pyrrhus winning over material. Okay, so you could win a state, you could win land, you could win in battles or business battles tremendously, but you want to be very cautious of what people call a pyrrhus win, so that you win, you get to enjoy it. Okay, this is in Rohini Nakshatra, where you're hungry for, okay, like the everything that's associated with it. So yes, be cautious with that. Um, and Mercury is that rules Jupiter right now is opposing Pluto. So it would be a fierce battle that you do have the chance to win. But then, at what cost? And notice that Mercury is ruled by the Sun, which is in Cancer on Sirius. Okay, so you can even turn to Sirius to assist you. But then it's very important to get your conscious in check, okay? Especially if it's around investments, real estate, land, belongings, okay? But Gemini, tropical Gemini is also technology, business deals. If you're doing merging and acquisitions in tech companies, big tech, okay, chips and stuff like that, then biotech, okay? So you really want to check your consciousness, okay? Because it's gonna be, you don't want that to be your demise, if you win in that sense, or what seems to be like win. So that is a thing that comes up. But other than that, it's also a great time to become successful, knowing that there is power at play, but you also have support from the spirits. Again, Uranus is on Algol. Okay, proceed with cautions, give reverence to Algol. I don't know if she's blinking on the day of the lunation, but she's not that pinpointed. Okay, Venus is ruled by the moon here, so the moon is the strongest for this lunation. What is it good for? What to begin when the moon is in Cancer? Always give reverence to what I said is the women that were killed supposedly in the protection of the nation, in hidden ways. The electrocuted women. Okay, listen to these stories on the Imagination podcast. That's going to be useful to you, because anything you start, you're going to have to remedy that Venus on the 22nd degree. Okay, so instead of you hearing the news, okay, then you want to initiate, you want to take advantage of the sextile between Venus and Uranus and Algol, and give the reverence yourself, so you change reality and unlock wealth that is actually wealthy and healthy for you, rather than undermine yourself. And then appropriate things to start with new moon in Cancer. Well, because it's conjunct in Sirius, pretty much everything. Like anything you want to have the blessings of the rise of Sirius, I think you have to check it is rising, would be appropriate. If you want to nourish yourself better, work on both mother and father wounds with this one. Okay, so it's a new moon, the sun is involved. So if you want to curate your relationship with your parents, even if it's about forgiving the unforgiven, or not forgiving the unforgiven, it's also a sort of curation. Okay, then that can be the case. If you want to, yes, begin to learn about the moon, practices that take the lunation into account. So you could do even astrology, moon magic. All these things are appropriate to start with the new moon. Fertility of the land, okay, but again, Venus is on a little degree, so planting something in memory of is appropriate. Okay, planting, yes, let's say herbs or flowers in memory of is appropriate. If you want, you could have with the trine to Neptune, get flowers that have healing properties, or maybe for grief. Okay, that can be um, very appropriate to begin to plant. And you wait for the first crescent moon, or it's possible maybe to begin to plant. Usually you don't do it when you don't see the moon, because it is in Cancer. Maybe as the moon goes deeper, okay, into the next phase, it's already appropriate to plant. We don't want to go all the way into Leo, um, but yes, we will see the moon in Leo already. And so because we will see the moon in Leo, then anything performative, okay, the sun, Cancer, new moon, and then moon into Leo, we're going to have reception between sun and moon. And that is already anything performative, curating your eyesight, um, your health, okay? Taking up healthy cooking, the type of cooking that you enjoy is going to be very appropriate to start. Performances, the arts, cruelty-free art, cruelty-free music is something that's going on. You want to listen to Jaguar Wright around that. So again, proceed with caution, okay? But you can ask for the protection of Algol. Okay, Jaguar, right, I think has Jupiter on Algol, and that's why we hear her speaking and surviving this, while other people couldn't even say a word. She's protected because she's working with Algol. Okay, but the people that work with Algol and they tend to the truth. First of all, they have to tend to the truth. There's no way around this. Okay, they have to tend to the truth. They have to speak up. Okay, when you hear me speaking up about all these things, I'm doing so because this is how I stay in my body and ward of psychic attacks. When I listened to and she said, well, they if they would let me go, then I would live my life and that would be okay. But that's not what happened. So I find myself speaking. That's literally what happens with a lot of whistleblowers that talk about these things. Because, who wants to blow the whistle on the calls of the tooth? Like, who wants to be doing that? Well, practically no one. And who would believe you? And that takes me back to the cycle of eclipses, okay, with the solar eclipses that was on the Nineveh cities associated with Nineveh. And it's kind of like what's the story is the God tells the prophet, you go to Nineveh and you tell them ta 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 ta. The guy says, well, it's not, they're enemies of me, they wouldn't want to listen to me. And then he's swallowed by a whale and vomited on the shore of Nineveh. And he has to speak. And if you are a whistleblower at this time, it's kind of like what happened to you. Who would listen to me? Like, why should yeah. Why should all these people, wise people with a suit and tie and trust fund listen to me? Well, because because you're supposed to speak up. So, and then Twitter becomes x.com on an algo election. So, and first I was like, oh, I like the astrology, I like this, I like that, and I had no idea what's going on. In the back of the mind, structurally, it's impossible for a person to be in this rank and not be involved in these things. But wow, I did not see that one coming. Oh my God. So again, listen to D-Day. So what you will begin will receive the support of Saturn. Okay, so it can have duration. Again, the duration is also inclusive of the aspect to Pluto. Okay, so cautious. There still is this opposing aspect to Pluto. especially from Venus. So, yes, imagine commemorating the memory of the women that people say that they didn't kill. Okay, that's about the times. Um, but you do have the support of Saturn to be enduring. There's a bunch of B6 in the sky, so I suggest you to if you're working with Algol and you give him the reverence to take advantage. Okay, this is appropriate for starting even a podcast or a blog to do with commemorating the killings by the big wealth, the decentralized big wealth, um, by the big wealth to do with science. So the big tech, the big this, the big that, and those that were murdered. This is appropriate, okay, to commemorate them, and you're protected with a bunch of B6 styles. So it's a new beginning. That's set it in the new moon. If you do it, set something in the new moon, then take action in the first crescent moon when the moon is in Leo. This is very, very protected. You have to do the inner work. Okay, you have to don't like it's not for the newbies. That's what I'm saying. Okay, it's not for the newbies. Not even when you think about Me Too level. Okay, a lot of the Me Too levels, like Me Too level. Yeah, he said this, he said that, he touched this, he touched that, and then it's like, no, I don't believe in energy. I don't believe in. With this, I'll go. Good luck. Okay. Or yes, yes, it's about justice. It's about this. It's not about financial things. It's not about this. It's not about that. Well, yeah, well, the only way to cure psychosis is housing first and being believed, and having a place to live. Okay, so you'd be surprised. Okay, so really, it's not for a newbie to start that. It's not for someone who is like, but again, like you do have protections. Just be aware that there's a deeper process to go through. Okay, and as a person who is on that journey, there are things that even to talk about would provoke something now. We talk about the soul. Episode 9 for Water Expands Upon Cooling was the soul journey, and it's unlisted. Okay, we talk about these things. There's certain things that to talk about them now would be provoking certain spirits, not spirits, but people that are already grieving. And I'm like, okay, that might not be relevant for everyone. But if you are on this journey and you've had those experiences, yes. So when I did Me Too, then, well, I definitely ran into, hey, your favorite musician was Me Too. Your the musician you listen to at the hospital when you're, escaping like the bullies of the academia, they were also doing that. The Okay, and that and the list goes on and on. So it is genuinely, you want to change, it's genuinely tending to that change, and and the things that the conjoining of experiences. Okay, hey, the person that helped you out of human trafficking when you were homeless in Amsterdam and didn't find a shelter through mediumship because they were no longer alive. Oh, they vouched for a judge that was electrocuting people and children to death and raping them on tape, allegedly. Okay, prepare, brace yourself. It's a journey. And I'm saying that not so that you would be scared of and not tend to that, but so that you have what you need and you know that you have all this protective B6 styles, but there's also the inner journeying that you're doing along the process. Okay, if you're going to be like, I'm so judgmental of these people, I'm so this, I'm so that, I'm like, my gosh, you can be taken to the road to show you how you could be one of these people. And if you are also on the like, oh, so forgiving, so this or that, then my God, you will be taken to show what these people do. Okay. And that is a very overwhelming trajectory. But for such beginnings, the sky is very appropriate. Um, and you know, and something that you need to decide on. If you decide, you have a ton of protection that you can tap into, which is our goal. The duration of a Saturn that is protective of you, not to say too much in the beginning, and it's going to be long lasting. Okay, the project will be long lasting and enduring. There's even the trine to Neptune that's building up with Venus there. So depending on which day you take action, there's a lot going for you. The sky is not particularly 22-ish, nor is it 11-ish. So that I like. You might want to think about the day after the revolution, okay? Kind of cruelty-free art, cruelty-free this, but you do take into account that the commemoration is important, the women that were murdered is important. Yes, I think this is what I have to say about this lunation. I'm going to go to the full moon, and I think I'm going to later pause. So I'm like, yeah, the weather here. So the full moon is 21 July, and this is again a full moon in Capricorn, but this time in 29 degrees Capricorn, conjuncting Pluto. So this full moon will be a lot more ominous than the previous one. Okay, today we had the full moon in Capricorn. Yes, there were many things popping up from the heavens, but this new moon is going to be carrying a lot more clarity. Okay, and mind you, what we've been dealing with in this full moon today, when I was recording, that was Neptune's dissociation was necessary. Okay, for me to be you can listen to my videos and understand what I was talking about. Okay, me unblocking Elon Musk after I blocked him because of an eggplant. And by the way, I had an eggplant that I didn't cook. I still have it on the in the kitchen, and I was like, "What's this eggplant? What's this? Oh my gosh, it's related to that." So I blocked him because of an eggplant that he sent to his employees, and I was like, I don't want like to enable that. And then unblocked him, and then I made a comment about something that he wrote again in the light of like, you know, like the sexually vulgar comments, and he didn't do it anymore. And I wrote about things that I do want to see, and he did write about them. And then the sex scandals exposed, and then so that's how I got to know about him being involved with electrocuting people, kind of like a la Juris de Mink. Allegedly, I believe, the victims, for when, okay, and that was my experience. Okay, so dissociation was needed to tend to that, and all of that happening in 1 week, so 1 or 2 weeks, all since May, I think, since the May Day with Assange, because that was why. Okay, I was going with the free Assange on everyone, and like, you know, who do you turn to? The big names. And that's what happened. So I definitely got to discover it in this very particular way. And dissociation, of course, is needed when you find out such news. But this full moon is going to have a lot more clarity. And on a retic degree is a ton of clarity. It's very predictive as well. The conjoining to Pluto, Moon Pluto. Okay, Moon Pluto natively we call it Hades moon. It's the moon where, you know, the moon is bringing the energy of a planet to the earth. So when the moon is adjacent to Pluto, we really get the energies of Pluto. And what is Pluto doing? Pluto right now will be in zero. On my Pluto square. It will be in 0 degrees Aquarius, and so we're letting go. We're completing. Okay, this is going 6 months backwards, but also a year backwards to the last full moon and the last new moon in Capricorn, and we are in completion cycle of something and letting go. We see the full picture about something. And that can be related to medical investments, okay, Saturn in Pisces, medical investments in biotech, especially bonds, trust funds that are around biotech. I already began to see something around that. Yes, like biotech trust funds or trust funds that are only to do like with the what the heck. I even need to know more about this. And we're going to be seeing some taboo thing to do with that. And so but it's also astrological. Okay, with this full moon we definitely see that to work with Algol. Yes, it's a wealth talisman, but it's also the symbol of Medusa that was raped and murdered but wasn't believed and then got very angry and magically used it to ward off those who do that. So you don't want to be electrocuting and raping people to death and turn into Algol at the same time. Especially not when you're dealing with energy. So that is, yes, and Uranus will be on Algol. Okay. And Mars will already have gone through. So July, oh, I owe you another Mars conjunct Uranus on Algol video. Mars is like the sword. Algol has to do with beheading, severing ties with the unjust, real estate, stuff like that, electrocution. Yes, all these things. So, and again, this shape that we saw in the new moon of very protective skies. We do have Mars square Mercury. Mercury is in Leo and is ruled by the sun, which is in the moon sign. So as per the strongest planet, it's a big loop because moon in Saturn sign, Saturn in Jupiter sign, Jupiter in Mercury sign, Mercury in Sol sign in moon sign. Did I miss anybody? Okay, and then moon in Saturn sign and so on. So it's a big loop. There's not one planet that is strongest in the chart. Venus is on the 11th degree. It is to do with electricity. It is to do with power cuts, and it is to do with suicide. Okay, so she's sextile in Jupiter, 12 degrees Gemini. And that's what she's doing. Okay, the bisextile, the protective sextiles are the Neptune, Sun, Uranus, and the Moon, Pluto, Uranus, Neptune. Okay, so the bisextile of Uranus, Neptune, Pluto that is already on and is involving Mars as well. So Mars is with Uranus here. Um, it's also a situation where if there are two teams, okay, I'm not talking about sports, more like if there are two teams, okay, so Team Pluto and Team Uranus, okay, let's say, or Team Neptune and Team Uranus, they have quite, they're quite good opponents. They're quite good opponents to each other because each is protected by bisextile. Okay, if you're on team Mars, Uranus, Sun, Neptune, or you're on team Hades, Moon, Mars, Uranus, Neptune, then and basically it's the team of the Sun and the team of the Moon. But what the team of the Sun has to remember is that its planets are ruled by the Moon. Okay, but the Moon is in detriment, so it's there's a lot of balancing out of opponents, opposite teams, opposite perspectives. So team that and team that. And both of them have a lot going for them. So if there are sports games at this time, I think it's going to be very entertaining to watch because you're going to watch two competent teams play against each other. And but again, you have to tap into the bisextile. When you tap into it, you see two competent teams playing against each other. So I'm not a big sports fan, but we're gonna have, if we have sports games, we're gonna have some very interesting games to watch at this time. And so I can say, if as per the topic of the algol topic, we talk about SRA, satanic ritual abuse, and people are programmed to be people are programmed to be perpetrators and mass murderers, as well as to be victims of this, and they perpetrated. They were both hurt and hurting, and so the various teams might have a lot to say to each other. Okay, for the various arguments that we could hear around this topic. Okay, we talk about recovery. When we're gonna have this conversation, the world will not be the same world again. And what are the implications of those things about our prison system, our exile system, of when people are not included, and so on and so forth. We're going to have this conversation. The world is not going to be the same world again. And when we talk about programming, okay, it really goes beyond a lot of victim perpetrators equations, while not being able to ignore the victim perpetrators equation. There's something very, very difficult going on there, that is not it's not easily tended to. It's a very important conversation to have. Its implications are not simple on humanity, on the psyche, but here it will be way more clear that we are having these conversations. Okay, both teams have a lot to say to each other. Both teams have quite valid points. Mars is applying to conjuncting Sedna in Gemini. So themes of betrayal, around army, militants, business, real estate, investors, innovators. Okay, the iceberg is deep. You see the tip of the iceberg, but the iceberg is deep. Is what I'm saying. And at the same time, we cannot enable, okay, the continuation of this either. So it's requiring for a lot, and so it's a lot of protection. Again, this is Capricorn. This is end of Capricorn when Pluto. I think this is the last lunation before we have Pluto delving into Capricorn. It's the last lunation in Capricorn before we have Pluto delving into Capricorn once and again for good for the next 248 years, or 250 years. So what we deal with now will be wealth growing, will be forests growing. What we don't deal with now will be famine, toxic land, nuclear holocaust, and so on. We are in the mirror image of the Second World War, okay? Uranus is right where it was in the Second World War, but Pluto is in the opposite trajectory, okay? Pluto was between Cancer and Leo, and right now Pluto is between Capricorn and Aquarius, which is exact opposite. And Neptune is between Pisces and Aries. I don't remember what Neptune was back then. But this is, yeah, I think Gemini. No, I don't remember. Anyway, no, Gemini is too. Heck, I don't know. Okay, maybe Virgo. I don't know. But this is a mirror image. Okay, not a perfect mirror image. And so we are not at the days of the Second World War, but we are also not at the days of the Second World War. We are not at the days of the French Revolution, but we're also not at the days of the French Revolution. French Revolution did not, I think, have Uranus in Taurus. It did not have Aries in Aries just yet. Okay, so there are themes that arise, but we cannot completely compare it to the past. And this is when you talk about mundane astrology and talk about international relations, the models of going back to history and thinking of today in terms of what was are not suffice. Okay, you're dealing with what is today. Okay. And yes, it can be, playful, and you see politicians taking imageries of various leaders or various quotes or various this or various that. But there's also a bigger picture here that is going on. Even so much so that, people take, sorry to put to put the spotlight on that, people take, let's say, Churchill, which won the Second World War. So you'd say, okay, it's a good deal. There are also other reasons astrologically the charts are compatible. But then what you would think is that this is the winner of the war, but what is actually is this person inspired Hitler, and that was something that you could take on. Let's say put that picture in your office, and then people are like, yeah, that person inspired Hitler. And then you would or wouldn't be expecting that. Again, if we talked about the election of X.com on Algol, then the election of a picture of Churchill in your office might be of quite a similar fashion. It wasn't like women were spared, right? And so there are all those things that we don't quite predict when we make an election, when we make a decision of something that's going to have a duration. And here also we have a duration by the merit of the outer planets, okay, not so much by the merit of Saturn, that's surprisingly uninvolved. Saturn is sitting in the Eke and surprisingly uninvolved with the skies, with the big planets right now. However, and also Chiron, okay. However, the outer planets are involved, and they give us giant duration for what we are letting go of. So you could be letting go of a certain imagery. and right now would be appropriate to let go of. Okay, letting go of, but you will be facilitated with a different imagery, with a different poetry, with different quotes that are perhaps more relevant to our time. So you will have what you're letting go of is also Sun opposite Pluto, and that is very well to do with um, uh, leaders and oppositions between leaders and bankers and science, um, national leaders versus Plutonian powers in kind of global organizations. That is accentuated here. For example, recently I saw people beginning to list the leaders that participated in Davos. Okay, back then Rutte was governor, but also Herzog from Israel. It was, and this is a World Economic Forum convention, Davos. So what was Herzog doing that? What was our president? Okay, for Israel, what was our prime minister for Netherlands? Um, doing there, the king of Jordan, people from China. Um, yes, you can look at the lists, but this is very much where the lists is not just the Epstein list, but also the WEF list, which might have more synchronicity than we can imagine when we understand structure. So, Hades Moon is just about that. These leaders and their peoples might not be able to escape the truths and will have to resort to imagery. But this is also where we have a big conflict, and people may try to use, give them circus and culture to kind of masquerade, or use poetic lines to kind of avert from the confrontation. It's very likely to happen right now, and they're actually very protected when doing so. So that's that's also a thing to take into consideration. Um, that their teams are quite protected. When you get the structure, okay, so yes, there are a lot of things that you learn about these figures, that you understand that they are sometimes not less enslaved than the people that they colonize. And it's even those who give the orders. Okay, so that is a point for consideration, which does not justify their being enslaved and not justify their enslaving. We are the ages of abolishing slavery. Okay, especially when it comes to sexual slavery and sex trafficking, the age of abolishing those type of things. You think after the two world wars, women got the right to vote, to have a bank account. Okay, but it took 2 generations of men dead. Okay, as I reminded the very person who taught me that and then tried to violate my sexual boundaries. Took 2 generations of men dead for women to vote. How many people have to die for willing consent? If I'm not safe for saying, if I cannot say no to you without that having implications, however do you want anybody to be able to say yes to you? That was what I was doing with the Me Too while people were. Okay. And the spirit of the matter of the thing is, that's the name of the channel. I didn't even get it because I was just trying to retreat. There goes my retreat. There's my retreat. So powerful, powerful, powerful endings with a lot of protection from the sky alongside. Powerful letting go of powerful themes, people's conflicts, powerful confrontations. Sun opposite Pluto, you know, I recently had an innocent tweet to someone that I have this very likely aspect in the synastry there. Sun is the father, Pluto's power and taboo. And I have a sun on the willing consent phase of Taurus. So what I was like, well, it's necessary to say that may have been more powerful exposure or saying or revealing than I had even intended or knew it to be. I still don't know the extent of what I addressed there. But Sun opposite Pluto is a direct confrontation of that which brings light, which really brings light. Okay, it's not Lucifer. It is genuinely a light bulbing star that lights us all, and that which is the most hidden from the light. And Pluto in Saturn's sign is really the farthest away from the sun. But this direct confrontation is just like when you have a flashing light, okay? And look for something, look for something, look for something. Then you meet that planet, you meet Pluto, and then you point it directly to understand, what am I seeing? It's like, oh, that's a bum hole. Why am I even seeing that? Why you put in a flashlight in someone's bum hole? Well, if you go a little bit to the side, you see what they're doing. And so the imagery is persistent and is definitely not easy to tackle. For me, it pinpoints my Pluto square. So so that's interesting in and of itself. But for like mundane confrontations, and then we're gonna have team this and team that, and all of them will have a lot to say to each other around this exposure. This exposure, yes, is very, very big. Okay, it's the kind of reminds me where I was a young child and I wrote like a diary. And then the diary was like a story, and I wrote a story, and it was half real, half not. And then my parent came, found that place, and began to confront with me. And I was like, yes, at that point I felt very weak and miserable and didn't understand how am I supposed to be a writer if I'm not allowed to write. When they would be encouraged to write by me more commercially, then they would have the similar problem. But this problem would already be with the intelligence. so, so you see how that was a preparation, more so than a mere trauma, when you understand what I'm speaking about nowadays. So we grew up with the sunny side up, okay? We grew up with the bum hole in the sun. We got you're a Scorpio, you got an answer to every question that's turned to you. And for the natural questions like, what were you doing looking for that in my room? What would you think you're going to find there? And what could be so discriminating that you would be afraid that I would write there? And so this is a very much bumhole in the sun kind of full moon, where you may have, oh, that their bum hole is hairy. If you like, yes, my bum hole may have been hairy some of the days, but how do you know that? And then the question is, what is it that the people, the how they got to know that is the question, but then it's also the what they got to know. So what did you get to know? Okay. What did you get to know? And is it more important than the how did you get to know that? that's going to play a big deal around the themes. Because Neptune is content. Okay, it's a poem, it's a movie, it's something, it's a experience, something ethereal, or it's a drug. And Mars is can also be how you got to know that. Did you invade somewhere? Did you invade someone's privacy? Did you this? Did you that? Did you torture someone to get the truth? Well, how do you know that they speak the truth if you tortured them? You didn't listen to them, you didn't believe them. They would tell you whatever you tortured them to tell you. So they would tell you what you want to hear, and that might be true, might not be true. But because you tortured them, you'll never know. Or maybe they give you correct information, but then it's like you got it through those means. And now is a big problem, okay? And both teams will have a lot to say to each other. Yes, with Neptune, you could, and the other way around, you could have been channeling insights or information, and then will people say, well, it's not true, but then suddenly something is revealed. It's like, well, it kind of is. How do you know it? I channeled. I don't know. I saw this, I saw that. I turned to you. You said you don't want to hear it because it's channeling. So I moved on with my life. But how did you get it? I was channeling that. Yeah, well, my mom wrote a book about that war bombing, and then that bombing happened. Our house got filled with all kind of people that we don't see that move things around the house. You go to a therapist, you casually mention that. You say, if that happened to me and I believed it was real, yeah, what would you do? Okay. So is it this one is not going to be with the real or imagined, but more with hey, but you channeled that, and then it's like, well, but that information was true. Okay, this country is North Korea. Yes, it was. Okay, so that can be a bit more clear. You can have a little bit more clarity even around your channelings, even around the information that comes through when you're doing, the type of quick writing where you, or when you're making art or when you're singing and something comes up through that. And it's also good to practice that. But it's a big revelation that sets this is a way more closure than we've had in the beginning of Capricorn, okay, in this full moon. This is closure. Okay, there's a lot of closure coming to the forefront here, and the various teams, it's going to be maybe two teams are going to have a lot to say. Yeah. And I guess the teams that has the more outer planets can take this, because the team outer planets is team Uranus Neptune, Uranus Mars, okay, Neptune and Moon Pluto. This team, while team Sol in Cancer, an heretic degree, Mars, Uranus, and Neptune have a lot to say, maybe about how they got the information, about this, about that. Team Big Three Outer Planets takes this, okay, whether in the public opinion or in the court of the heavens, which is something that I heard recently from the on the Imagination podcast. Okay, so you want to be like if you're siding up with Team Hates Moon, Mars, Uranus, and Neptune, I think that they have the bigger perspective, but we cannot ignore what the team with the Sun says as well, because even though it's not like an equal argument, you still have to take it into account for your judgment or as you're letting go of things. Okay, and so that is big lunation. So I owe you the Mars conjunct Uranus, which I think is one of the biggest. Um, yeah, Mars conjunct Uranus. First of all, remember my podcast. Those of you who watch me for my podcast for astrology, remember the money flying out of the pocket. Okay, so we're gonna have it 15 Yuli. 15 Yuli. I want you to be prepared because this is money flying out of the pocket and alcohol is involved. So if you're settling lawsuits, there's going to be an unusual amount of wealth you have to sever ties with. The moon is growing. So if it's an investment, it can be good election for investing if you wait for the moon to switch degree, okay, not on the 11th degree. But Mars is going to conjunct Algol and Uranus at the same time. Crassus said, I think, that Uranus is dim on that day, that Algol is dim on that day. I will need to delve into that in a deeper video, okay, to see what the state of Algol is. Algol charity is appropriate, okay, and it's going to be an unusual, taking form in an unusual way. So it's going to be both spirit and matter. There's something you need to understand. This is the phase of spirit and matter, not either or. It's going to be both. And you think about real estate to survivors of sexual violence, physically and psychically. You think about these people being relieved. You think about whether it's severing ties. You think about investments, okay, loss of money, but also big gains, although we need to see the state for our goal. Yes, to make money from alcohol, I think, like, yeah, it's a bigger journey than you can imagine. I want you to listen to Moon Haven Astrology regarding that, because she addresses the wealth aspect of alcohol. But again, if you use alcohol as wealth talisman, like there are other wealth talismans. To use alcohol for reverence and to balance spirit and matter in life, yes, you will encounter tremendous wealth just by doing this process. But use alcohol for wealth unless it is like to recover from something or to wealth that is protected from financial violence. And those themes, like if you know, you know. Okay, for me it's very relevant. Alcohol is my go-to wealth talisman, because I'm dealing with all these things. Okay, I have the parent of my Juno and IC and Mercury on alcohol. So that is a big deal for me, that is relevant to my partnerships, to my housings, to my belongings, to my self-esteem, alle zusammen. And this is one of my biggest journeys in life. So unexpectedly, even though I have a midpoint, but I don't have a, not a parent, but yes, I have a midpoint, but I don't have a planet on Algol, and so I wasn't seeing that, or why is Algol so important for me, just that I was deeply called to work with Algol, especially when the eclipses were on my fourth house. So, but if it's not in the books, there are other wealth talismans, okay? There are other wealth talismans, and if you want wealth, then I don't suggest you necessarily to turn to alcohol unless you're called to. Not because alcohol is angry or because of this. No, it's because it's like you like, what mountain do you want to climb? The Everest or some hill that you can inherit your children's money? Okay, for me, with my lineage, I guess we're Team Everest. And it doesn't necessarily mean that the wealth is going to be seen in that fashion, but that you think about the forest as the grandest wealth. Okay. What do you think about um, the freedom to roam as a grand wealth? Okay, over generations, preserved over generations. You think about those things. Okay, usually don't just think about your next meal. Um, so this is a powerful. It's protected with the B6 style. Okay, Neptune and Pluto, and I have a cat that burst. I didn't, for example, no. I just talk about wealth, and she's eating chips. I didn't even know there's chips there. This is so meta. Um, my cat found all chips and cheese that I left for her, but only now. I was sure she found it earlier, and now she's like, "But there's food. Like there is food." Okay, so she's eating chips. Um, I think I need to check that there's enough food there. That was just so lovely. This is wealth. This is wealth. You record a video and then, but really upsetting things, and then you have a cat that sticks their head into the chips bag and runs across the room, which is what happened right now, and gets the chips. And she uses her palms so much, which is this mittens. That's so amazing. So that is also, yes, we have a friend here. That's what I have to say right now about this. It's very protected. Okay, so of course, accidents, explosions. Of course, sometimes shit goes down when there's a 9/11 on a sex scraper. I said what I said. Um, with no people in it, still. Do it before the people get in there. That's the point. Um, in case somebody didn't get that from the tweets. So, more than a disclaimer, is genuinely the point. A sun is applying to Procyon, so that's another thing that's happening in the sky. And the moon will apply to Alpaca, which is magically you turn to it in order to avoid sex scandals. I don't know if that was useful in my case, but this gives a person creativity and tendency to mingle not only with their status. So that can be, especially for the generation that has Neptune around there. Um, so that is a bit of a leaking that happens. It's not as easy. It's not just I wear a talisman and that protects me from that. There's also inner work to do. So that's the Mars conjunct Uranus. So it's you tap into the bisextile to tend to it. Yes, it's in no way do I want to take away from the explosive power of this, especially when it's algal matters. But it's the money flying out of the pocket. Okay, don't expect your liquid assets to endure past July 15. Plan ahead. Okay, buy your food, buy your things that you need with you. Keep the gas, some money for what you need. Okay, for what your liquid assets, your unexpected things that you would maybe need to liquidify some resource for that. It's Mars Uranus conjunction time, and it's on Algol, so give Algol the reverence, and yeah, don't be cheap on yourself. Okay, whatever you have to invest in here, do it with the heart open, and that will be for the best, and you will have access to miracles coming your way. So tax evasion would be the Donald Trump case, but he was caught on tax evasion when he was settling a lawsuit of someone that he basically molested. And that was like, if you have to pay the money, just pay Okay, but to say the truth, I don't know if the tax evasion worked in her favor, because if he's evading taxation, you can give her amount that she doesn't have to pay taxes. I don't know how does it work. Like, I really don't know how it went there. I know Trump usually takes care of his own assets and not so much others, including his spouses. So I assume that that was not the case, but I could also be wrong. Um, but again, this is where even if you're settling a court case, okay, don't try to be cheap on trying to play power plays. And no, Pluto will stand by you if you're not taking the power play or the power move, and you're settling this with grace and with reverence. Then you're good to go. Whereas if you try to mess with that, but the thing is, with Uranus, it is rebellious, and there can be even tendency maybe to rebel Algol. But Algol is equally as rebellious. Okay, so there's a tendency for deep rebellion with Mars Uranus, that is kind of supported by the Neptune and Pluto. So again, you need to tap into it, and you need to make sure that you are in alignment with willing consent, presence in our body, acknowledging spirit and matter. Okay, that your little rebel structure doesn't take you where it's going to be unsatisfactory. And it's only the Mars conjunction. Okay, and Pluto cannot be blamed, Neptune cannot be blamed. It's only the Mars coming to such close proximity with Uranus that tends to go overboard. And so, and in a quite creative, okay, there's a spark of creation, it's explosive. Yes, so again, be willing to to compromise when it comes to the Algol spirit, or know that this is planned. Okay, that this is that those trajectories might take place. But this is also when Mars trines Pluto. Okay, we'll trine Pluto July 22. And that is a great time for wealth accumulation. The moon is still growing, I believe. Yes, the moon is decreasing. So wealth accumulation, it's more about, I need to do a whole video about this. Oh my God, I need to do a whole video about it. Okay, let's get into the Mars trine Pluto. So this is July 22. By the way, if you want to, thank you for the likes, share, comments, and so on. If you want to do timestamps for this video, is possible. And if you do, please leave like PayPal or something, so that if this gets monetized, I can maybe send you some dividends, so you could get paid. But right now, I don't have money to pay for you. I don't have money for you right now. But if this video gets monetized and you did timestamps for the first person that did that, then I would be glad to send dividends. So yeah, when it comes to July 22nd, Mars is trining Pluto, okay, on that 0 degree. So Pluto ingressing to the 0 degree. And this is a decreasing moon. So, which the moon will accentuate, okay, it will go over Pluto on the full moon, and then we'll have Mars entering the trine. What I like about this, you can use that, which also means you can use the full moon for that, to get out of the way things, baggages, themes around betrayal, because Mars is conjunct in Sedna, that bother you with wealth acquisition. Okay, this is the time where appropriate, okay, how Jordan Peterson says, clean your room. It's appropriate to clean your room. Get rid of what you don't need. But it's also psychological baggage. set intention to get rid of psychological baggage around betrayal, themes of betrayal. You know, I ran into a meme that said, the betrayal was my blessing. And, you know, betrayals are usually very painful at the time, but later you find out that, oh, thanks God, I'm not associated with this group, with this person, with this thing anymore. Okay? And so that's the story of Senna. She became the king of the queen of the underworld. And if you wouldn't appease Sedna, you wouldn't have food to eat. Okay? So be very aware when it comes to these things. So clearing baggage around betrayal is highly appropriate, clearing psychological baggage. You can set intention to do it. You can do a ritual to do it. You can light a candle to do it. Okay, comb your hair. And that is very, very appropriate. Okay, cleansing bath. Very, very appropriate to with salt to adjust your nervous system, to clear out the path so that more wealth can come in. Okay, and this wealth has to do around science, around investment in medical technology that perhaps you want to clear out also your investment portfolio when it comes to industries that hurt children, medical stuff that are not done ethically. So this is a great time to clean your bonds, your investment portfolio, your boli-colis, your life insurances, okay? And this is not the time to invest so much. Again, moon decreasing. And this is a very general, I'm not your investment advisor, and I'm not even a financial astrologer. Okay, I'm just talking about this aspect. Just to keep it legal. What I am going to say, that Mars is severing ties, cleaning up, letting go, moon decreasing, letting go, yet another letting go, releasing. And this also means going over your whatever is to do with bonds, Saturn, long-term investments, okay? When you invest in debt, okay? Real estate associated even. What are you invested in? Get a checkup, get a cleanup. If you're invested in your own demise, get a cleanup. You're not going to necessarily get yield from those investments. We saw it with the real estate in 2008. We see it with the real estate again. You're being told, oh, right now is the financial crisis. It's time to get really wealthy from acquiring houses, from this, from that. But yeah, if you're willing to do what these guys did to get there, and you don't know how they died and how they live and what was their internal experience while having this wealth, okay, fine. Like, go and get a lot of houses and kill a lot of people and create a lot of karma for your ancestral lineage. Like, go ahead, do that. What can I say to you? Will you enjoy life? Will you enjoy this? Maybe it's fated for you, and that's why you hear about it. But if if you're Tom, Dick, and Harry, and you're thinking about, oh, it's like this is a good time to buy real estate, and real estate's always rise, always that, so do the other sharks think, and they're gonna do bombs in your city. They're gonna bring ayatollahs to your cities. They're gonna they're gonna stop at nothing to make you get rid of your estate. They're gonna bring tenants. They're gonna ruin your fucking house, and that you want, and then bring in a company. Okay, I have an astrologer friend that yes, had 12, 13 estates in the US, and then the house flippers came in, had to sell all of his estates, and he's a family man. It's not something we would predict. All of his estates, okay? You're like, you think about, okay, I'm going to bring a child, then another child, and then I got 13 estates. I got a company that runs them. Everything's fine. I make sure that the tenants are happy, that the house is properly held. Everything is fine. Every once in a while, I go there, I check. So the tenants are happy, I house people, it's something good. And then the house flippers come in and it gets mafia and you have to sell all of your estates. That's losing money. It's not gaining money. It's losing money. Because you also have to make sure that they're in good situation. You can't sell them like that. And they ruined the house. They blame it on the tenant. No. They sent the tenant to ruin the house. They threatened the life of the tenant to ruin the house. That's what's done. Okay? So you want to understand that these things are happening. Okay? Real estate is a rodeo, and it is so. And if you're doing it for investment, also for buying a house is not simple. And people say, well, rent a house, don't buy a house. It's stupid, because at the end of the day, you won't have the money to rent a house. But it really is that crazy business. It really is. Okay, what's the problem for Netherlands right now? Half the Swedes own half of Amsterdam, and then half the people that they brought in from Brussels to do even more sex trafficking are doing this in the house, probably of the Swedes. Okay, and then they don't even have the authority and the sovereignty to say, we want to close the door so we can take care of our internal affairs, so we can feed our homeless, so we can tend to our people, so we can have normal jobs, and then we can help as much as we can help, but not what we cannot help. And all of that happens in the 1996, where Delacroix, the whatnot, is being accused of an impossible amount of rapes and children that he kidnapped. And we understand that there was some trafficking ring was there, but they didn't want you to know that, so they brought in some other people that do child brides, that do crime, that do this. So you will want to focus your struggle against them and not against what happened in Brussels, what happened at the Supreme Court in Netherlands. Okay? And so the European Union comes. It's the building of an empire, the European Union. Netherlands just give it all of the authorities. And it gives away its sovereignty. Okay? So, of course, that affects your little investment. I'm not here to discourage you from investing in real estate. Not here from discouraging you from creating wealth and using debt in your favor. Okay? But there's a reason why David Icke so lovely talks on X about how Elon Musk and, yes, also many realtors and Donald Trump and this and that, well, these business people and these leaders are all trapped in the cult. And it's not true. That's what I want you to understand. The biggest names, the biggest billionaires, strongest man in the world that was or still is Elon Musk, is trapped in these cults. Okay? So Tom, Dick, and Harry want to get an investment out of, first of all, you do it on your name, you don't do it on somebody else's name. You're already exposed to everything. Your accountant makes one mistake, you could end up in jail. It's not small business money. Small business, maybe you have a fine, you have a this, have a that, which is annoying enough. But when you're talking about a couple of estates, you find yourself in jail while you are in the street and homeless, and the bank took the estates. This is something that I want people to know sooner or later, because a lot is needed to change. So, and really, I'm sorry, real estate is not lucrative business as long as there are homeless in the streets. It means somebody pays you because they're forced to pay you. So good morning, you are an oppressor. Goodbye your rights. Goodbye your rights. You have no rights. You're a top criminal, okay? Top criminal. This is when you force person to pay for you money, because otherwise they get raped in the street. You are a top criminal. That's the money from real estate right now, okay? It's not about somebody opens a new shop, a new business. Maybe they sell it, maybe they this, maybe they that. And even if. So you really have to think about these things when you make your money. Biomedical is not as clear because again, people invest in biomedical. It looks like a good investment, but then what the medical ethics is what they don't know. Okay, so also real estate, they tell you, okay, the prices of real estate are always on the rise. This is true. Well, first of all, why is it? Why do we even pay for real estate? It's our housing. And constantly it's a liability. We constantly need renovation, right? So this may be a good reality check where you are getting rid of certain baggages that you have. Okay, certain betrayals that you have. Okay, yes, you were betrayed, you had to sell your estates, but hey, you weren't put in prison for 20, 30 years for doing human trafficking, enabling human trafficking, basically. If somebody has to pay you for not to sleep in a place where they could get raped and kidnapped, and that is your house, it's your property. You know what happens? People don't have a safe environment. No, I'm insured. The lawyer said, what lawyer? The lawyer that has to vouch for the Supreme Court judge that the electrocuted children were raping them to death on tape. You trust this lawyer. You trust this accountant. You trust these people. That's your advice. Rich dad, poor dad. What was rich dad, poor dad? Go put all your money. Go put all your money. Take debt. Okay? I want you to read this book, the versions of this book, the earlier versions of this book, before they come up with the new one. People talk about this, and circle the word trust fund. You won't find it. And even if it will be on your name. Okay, how did Rockefeller made his money? Irrevocable trust funds. Okay, I do not, and patenting things in medicine that should be free and making them unhealthy. That's how Rockefeller made their wealth. And they had to cut dividends to the Inquisition. So you want to be the next Rockefeller, just check who was Rockefeller before you say, I want to be the next Rockefeller. Okay, aspire to wealth, wonderful. Refine this dream. That's the time to do it. When Mars is trining Pluto, it's a great wealth refinement. And a lot of the wealth, if you take to the Da Vinci, you're talking about statues, okay, you have a chunk of materia, and then you just scrape off what is unnecessary, so you're left with a beautiful statue, okay? That's the ideas you have about how you're going to make that wealth, or how you're going to leave inheritance to your children's children, and then you just remove what is not necessary. That's the Mars Pluto. So you're left with, oh, that is something that I'm actually going to put forward. And that is a very humble and decent step usually that takes you the road to go. And that when you see how big money is being made for generations, it's usually that humble step of never like the Warren Buffett saying, it's like some idiot will run your company at some stage. Make sure that even that idiot is successful. So design your company so that idiot can be successful, but then you don't want that idiot to get bored, because otherwise you have no rejuvenation in between, you also die. So this is very challenging. So that's what I have to say about this aspect. Anything more? Yeah, Pluto will trine Lilith July 10th. Do we have a Lilith ingress? No, it's in Libra. Lilith ingress is Libra, and then Pluto trines it. Another big wealth one. Okay, mine, you probably want the money flying out of the pocket ones. So we have Sun conjunct Rahu. What? No, I didn't hear that well. Sun square Rahu. Sun square Rahu on the 11th, emotional eating. You gotta, don't kill yourself, but you might kill your wallet. So this is the first one. You wouldn't expect that, but Sun is about our shine. And when it squares Rahu to something fated, when it's on the 11th degree, we might feel suicidal. In Sun in Cancer, we might feel suicidal. And so if food helps it, or if some buying something helps it, and Rahu is in Mars sign, so you might want to play big with money or something like that, simply because you're on a suicide mission of some sort. And just brace yourself, okay? It's going to be very psychologically stressful. Sun trines Chiron, July 15. Again, Chiron is an Aries sign, Mars sign. Mars is the action. And for the Sun, you might want to do, your identity is wounded, so you might want to take a physical activity to correct for this, even if it's like to prepare a certain meal, and it can be good, okay? But there is a crisis here, okay? You might want to cook yourself some nice meal, and you need the ingredients, and then you're like, oh, the pain in the wallet, okay, around buying those. And then, you're like, I don't know, have to buy meat and then, or milk, and think about how it's produced. Okay, with Mars, I'll go here. And this is the Mars conjunct Uranus that already is money flying out of the pocket big time because it's an outer planet. Rahu just accentuates on that big time. So this is July 15. I said, do not expect your finances to endure past that. So brace yourself, okay? Buy all the things you need to have at home to eat, to drink, to cool yourself. Buy it now, because after July 15, don't come for me. Like I'm not the astrologer. It's going to tell you, like, try to be patient with the money and think twice before you spend. When Rahu is in Aries and the Sun is squaring it and Mars conjunct Uranus, no, it's not going to happen. Sun opposing Pluto, July 23. Again, why would Sun opposing Pluto have to do with money flying out of the pocket? Well, lavish expenses. Okay, Sun is not a fiscal planet per se. Pluto is. What happens when you have a psychological crisis and you feel disempowered? Okay, you might want to buy a flashy car. All these Leo, okay, when Israel, after the 7th of October, Israel was invaded. All the lions people, everybody with the Leo, okay, everybody's ego hurt, but it's like that shit was planned. So putting on a show, okay, which ended up with the IDF giving a drug show in Khan as the poem goes. So that was, okay, one of these things where it's just going to happen, okay? And I'm saying that, by the way, it's funny, I'm laughing, but not laughing at them. I also have a Leo house, okay? The Sun is going to be there. It's like, oh, your ego is hurt. What are you going to do? You go buy something flashy. It's one of the possible transits. So this is July 23. If you've got anything left from July 15, then this one can be kind of like a revenge purchase, or and it's sextiles Mars. Mars is in Gemini, still conjuncting Sedna. So yes, you put it on a show of a business is as usual, and you're doing that with money that you very likely no longer have. So that was me buying the Sisters oil that I still did not receive onto solar flares from money that I don't have. So that was the flashy thing. What more do we see here? Well, July 3rd, Mercury opposes Pluto. Again, feeling disempowered, trying to correct for that with fiscal activity. That's just one of the things that are happening in the world right now. And Venus Pluto. Okay, Venus opposes Pluto this month, which, regardless of money flying out of the pocket, is deserving of a discussion. It's the annual Venus opposition Pluto, 12th July. If you're curious about, but there's going to be the Assange appeal on July 9th, I already tackled that. I have a separate video on that. Go watch that. So July 12th, Venus is opposing Pluto from 1 degree Leo, and Vertex is crossing her while it happens. So it's going to be extra fated opposition. I have a natal Venus opposition Pluto. It's basically where the planet Venus has to push for its own values and self-esteem. And Venus in Leo is flashy and showy, but the Sun is in Cancer is giving it extra Venus vibes, extra emotional vulnerability. And she's vulnerable in front of a planet that doesn't really feel comfortable with being vulnerable, and takes time. So that can create for unhappy situations. Not a great time for relations. This is a time where that's an insight, okay, that you're just being comfortable, vulnerable in your feminine, what they call, is stirring up a reaction of trigger from the other side. Like you're just being a woman and somebody is triggered by you're just being a woman. And that is pretty fucking annoying. But this is the spirit of the transit. You want to curate for it with whether you have talismans calling in the Venus trine Pluto or sextile Pluto. So people who carry, like me, the timestamp of an opposition of Venus to Pluto in the natal chart, this is going to be giving extra energies of Venus opposition Pluto. So you want to turn to the people whose Pluto, I know where I'm heading, whose Pluto is trining your Venus or sextiling your Venus, okay? You are the people that bring the Pluto trine Venus. When I did AstroSeek Peter natal chart, yes, so I checked for the asteroid Peter once. It was incredibly funny. On my descendant retrograde. So if you know, you know. So, but he has a natural Pluto trine Venus in his chart. And as I began to do these charts on AstroSeek, when I moved from astro.com to AstroSeek, I began to be a lot more optimistic about relationships. And that's true, okay? It's just simply, this is the program that's associated with the energy of a person who brings in a Venus trines Pluto to the table. So I'm much more comfortable doing astrology here. And so I like astro.com, but this one is actually more flowy for me. So yeah. What more? No, why are we in August? I think I have something to see in August. What have I got to see in August? For August, we have new moon, 12 degrees Leo. Okay. Then it sextiles Mars and Jupiter in Gemini. Mars is on Aldebaran. Okay. And okay, I have no idea. It's lots of Leo's energies and so on. Okay, so for back to July, what are the I think it's pretty much it. Okay, we really covered what we had to cover. Chiron is going retrograde July 26. And by the way, Saturn is already going retrograde in June, so it's going to be retrograde. Oh, when is Saturn going on 18 degree? I'm going to check for that. Okay, Chiron going retrograde on July 26th. It means it's going to go over the 22nd degree again, not yet in July, but it's going to accompany us through September. You know, this is the wound around assassination. When is Saturn doing its 18-degree thing? This is what I want to know. This is okay. Let's check for this in another way. Go Saturn. Oh God. So that was July 26th. And it is direct July 1. Saturn is already in the 19th degree. Let's do it with the lunations. Okay. When are we having Saturn on the 18th degree? Why does it matter? Well, 18th degree has to do with poisons. Okay, so this is it's going to be extra poison. 18th degree has to do with poisons, drugs, chronicle toxins, neurotoxins, all these things. And that is, yes, other than charts with this point that it brings back, but it's also when we might have a reality check to the pharmaceutical, the WHO, drug cartels. Okay, drug cartels. You see all these drug cartels being removed everywhere. I was at my parents' house and they're insisting on not moving into a better side of like the city. And what happens is that I slept there. There was a drug dealer, and he was kicking out some woman, and then he was kicking out some man, and the man tells him, "But I robbed the woman for 500 shekels." And he was not willing to sell drugs because it was undercover client. And it happened just after I recorded Water Expands Upon Cooling episode 99, I think, where I addressed also the drug cartels and the fact that the biggest drug cartel is the WHO. So yeah, we have some, let's see here. And so that was very fascinating. And I was like, I understood exactly what's happening. The WHO are basically basing their own drug cartel ship and crime organization. And so they have to remove the other criminal organization for which people are going to look at as, oh, they tend to corruption. Okay, this I got, this one. Let's say if it is, yeah. So as of July 23rd, Saturn ingresses to the 18th degree. Yes, so on the news, anything associated with drug cartels, drugs and taxes, yes, pharmaceuticals, WHO, where would Jupiter be in Gemini, Mercury in Leo? Yeah. I'll just let it play out. Like it's not. It's like, what will we hear about this time in this household? But I'll just let it play out. This is a time where you're going to hear a lot about all of what I just said. And the involvements of like mafias, children, to do with children and drugs, children, mafias, royal families. This is going to pinpoint those performers industry, the NDAs and drugs, all that stuff. The drugs, the drugs, the drugs. But what was else discovered then? Wait, because that was surprising for me. But I think it was also with Saturn on the 19th degree. I was expecting drugs and then leaking. I don't remember now. Oh, okay, I got it. Well, newsbrief. Yes, this is going to be a little ominous. So, yes, I will just let it play out. I don't have like a concrete prediction to do with that. But it's very and Saturn is as always. Saturn is news of the dead. So, and in Pisces, not even recently dead. So water expands upon cooling. Anyway, I'll see you in the next video.